Good morning and welcome to the collaborative CHIC and Equans SHDF Wave 3 webinar. We'll be discussing the next steps for social landlords in their aim to achieve net zero by 2050. Now, this is widely understood to be a real target across our sector and has progressed rapidly from a distant target to a mainstream objective. Government has supported the delivery of several projects through SHDF funding, and individual social landlords have progressed their own asset management strategies to start to really improve energy efficiency to reduce carbon. Now, asset management strategies now have to make a real choice around what levels of investment are affordable. What we'll aim to do with this webinar is to explain the intricacies of the SHDF Wave 3, and our speakers will share their own thoughts and ideas about how we can resolve conflicting funding challenges with real-life case studies. The agenda today will be, we've got a quartet of experienced speakers for you. So we will start off with Luke Hurd from CHIC. So Luke is an experienced operational and commercial director with a background in housing maintenance, contracting and facilities maintenance. As well as leading and managing all of CHIC's operational services, Luke leads CHIC's drive towards net zero. He's passionate about CHIC providing excellent services for our members and working collaboratively with the supply chain. Following on from Luke is Rebecca Reynolds. She is a sustainability manager at Equans, specifically focusing on the Midlands region and working closely with registered providers on formulating a decarbonisation strategy for their housing stock, maximising the use of available funding streams and identification of most appropriate retrofit measures. Following on from Rebecca, we have two Sarahs. The first Sarah Degg, is CHIC's Head of Member Services for the West region, helping to maintain strong relationships with our members and providing an excellent level of service. Through her previous roles in the social housing sector, she has developed a real passion for providing exceptional customer service and the future development of net zero. And finally, we have Sarah McClelland. Sarah is the communications lead for RISE, which is Retrofit Information Support and Expertise Team. Her role is to raise awareness of the fully funded support available to local authorities, housing associations, and the supply chain to create and successfully deliver large-scale retrofit programs. Now, Sarah has over 18 years of working in the social housing sector, developing and implementing retrofit strategies and programs. So I think without further ado, we'll hand straight over to Luke from CHIC to give you a little bit of an insight into the organisation and exactly how CHIC are helping our members with their decarbonisation strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome all. Hope you're all well this morning. Anna, if you could just flip over to the next slide. So what I'm going to discuss this morning very briefly is just give you a quick overview of who CHIC are, what we're about, and what we have developed as a consortium to try and support the sort of decarbonisation agenda within the social housing sector. So as I say, CHIC is a procurement house. We've been around for about 15 years now, and we work predominantly within the housing sector. What I think sort of differentiates CHIC from other consortium is we're asset managers who do procurement rather than procurement who try to do asset management. What that does is it gives us a sort of greater depth of understanding as to what the sort of key drivers are for the sector, and how we can actually support the sector in sort of doing things better. So a little bit of an overview there. We have over 200 members. I think actually at the last count it was about 260 members now across the length and breadth of the country. We manage now in excess of 1,300 suppliers across all of our various routes to market. We deliver, or we're now supporting just a little over actually 700 live contracts across the housing sector, and we're going to be doing about £256 million worth of asset investment works next year. So we are substantial in the sector in terms of supporting. Next slide, please. We have separated or split our various routes to market into 8 core services. I won't go through all of them, but the key one that we're focusing on today is sort of decarbonisation of renewables. And what I'm going to do is sort of discuss how we're supporting the wider sector as well as the supply chain in delivering that journey. Next slide, please. In terms of our operation, this is just a quick snapshot of where we operate. The tags on the map are where each of our members' head offices are. So that kind of shows you the sort of breadth of delivery models and delivery areas that we can support. For CHIC, we are a not-for-profit. Membership is free. Our members are typically social landlords, local authorities, but we also do support other public sector bodies across healthcare, education, and blue light. So we're there to support, and we're there to help make sure that sort of best practice and knowledge is shared effectively and consistently across the various sectors. Next slide, please. So in terms of decarbonisation, what was our goal really as a consortium? It wasn't just to create a route to market or try to sort of engage the supply chain, although that's obviously key to what we do as a procurement house. What we have done is we have implemented a national framework, which is going to be the key focus of the next couple of slides. But we also have a DPS, a dynamic purchasing system, that is available both across sort of Wales and the wider UK sector. The two routes to market give slightly different benefits to the sector. Obviously, through a framework, we have the ability to do direct awards, and that will be discussed further. Through the DPS, we were able to run further competitions and sort of drive that engagement with sort of SMEs and local contractors. What we wanted to do through our routes to market is actually value engineer the delivery models that are available. Sarah Degg later will discuss some of the learning that we've seen over the last few years along this journey. But really what we wanted to do was try to avoid the typical sort of drive to the lowest common denominator through procurement, but actually come up with solutions that help the sector understand the value add that the sort of supply chain and contracting market bring to it. And that will be discussed by my colleagues on this panel a little bit later. Through the framework, we have adopted the FAC1, which those from the sector will know is the gold standard framework agreement that's predominantly been developed for development works and new build. However, there's an awful lot of good practice within that FAC1, and we made a strategic decision that we wanted to adopt that best practice within this framework. And as a consortium, we are currently being assessed for gold standard accreditation across the frameworks that we have procured recently. So we're hoping we get a positive assessment of that very soon. The other ones that are key to us really was trying to standardise delivery models and supply chain engagements. My personal view as a sort of Chief Operating Officer of CHIC is that we're there to facilitate and support the sector. We're there to use the knowledge and the data, the information that flows through consortium to best advise the sector how they should be delivering the kind of works that we can support. We almost want to become a sort of knowledge centre for that best practice. And the only way we can do that is by having a full engagement with the supply chain in understanding what their drivers and forces are behind what they need to achieve, as well as that of our members and what ultimately the sector needs to learn and collaborate through. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick snapshot of the sort of key routes to market. As I mentioned, we have sort of 5 individual DPSs, ranging from the core sort of PAS 2035 services all the way through to delivery. But key for me in there is the sort of materials distribution as well, and how we're engaging with manufacturers across the sector to understand what their sort of routes and drivers and sort of journeys to improve the low carbon materials that we need to purchase for these works. I won't spend too much longer here on this slide, focusing on the Healthy Homes Framework, which is the consultants' works and services digitisation, because I'll cover that in the next one. Next slide, please. So what is the Healthy Homes Framework? This is a relatively new framework. We only launched it a few months ago. We have looked at how the sector was trying to deliver decarbonisation works and actually determined that we needed to bring to market a framework that was a lot more open to how the sector actually needed to operate in reality. So we've looked at three core lots for that framework: consultancy, works and services, including a full turnkey solution. So the turnkey solution includes all the services that are delivered under the lot one, consultancy. So that's all your PAS 2035, as well as your asset management and design works. And then we've also incorporated digitisation. Now, digitisation for us was around sort of platforms that are available to measure the output and the success of decarbonisation works in the sector, as well as smart sensors. So we've got sort of two lots under that. Core for us was around the commercial models. Again, I won't take too much away from Sarah later, but one of the key areas that we've kind of understood over the last few years in this journey is that one model doesn't fit all, and that the pricing of sort of decarbonisation strategies needed to be a lot more open in terms of the upfront costing, so that works can be actually value engineered rather than delivered as a fixed price. I'll come on to sort of discuss that in a little bit further. But what we then tried to do with the framework was feed in some cost models around consultancy, where we know and understand what that service delivers. So the PAS 2035 assessments, for example, but also give some flexibility to the supply chain within the framework to adapt their model to suit the individual needs of our members. Our works and services, so lot two, has been very much delivered through a sort of open book arrangement, where we've assessed the supply chain on their profit and overhead percentages, as well as various different live scenarios. So live decarbonisation works that have happened, they had to price those as a scenario so we could assess their delivery models. But really, it's about driving that value through to how these works need to be delivered over the long term, and promoting long-term collaboration through this journey, not just small individual projects. Digitisation is very much about bespoke pricing, as you can imagine, with IT systems. They are all slightly different, so definitely worth having a look at that. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview of what we have available. So under consultancy, we have three work streams: asset management consultancy, which is very much the upfront, working with members to understand what their long-term strategy needs to be, to both deliver decarbonisation and healthy homes. So part of the healthy homes framework is also looking at building safety, specifically damp and mould, as we assess that those two areas of concern in the sector at the moment are hugely interlinked, and can be supported in terms of a single procurement route. We then have your technical consultancy, which again is your PAS 2035, assessments, coordination, and upfront sort of trust mark development work that needs to be put in. And then we have technical design and associated services. So under consultancy, these services can be called off individually or as a combined function, if a member so desires to operate that sort of separate to their key works and services and key contracting market. Under lot two, we have four key work streams. Fabric first solution, which is very much the driver for wave two and is same for wave three. We have mechanical and electrical, where we've understood that the sector has very different skill sets, and we needed to be ready for when sort of energy and low carbon heating systems need to be installed as part of this journey. And then key for us was sort of work stream 2C, which is the turnkey solution, which effectively allows our members to combine all of the services under the consultancy under lot one through a single contract with one of the main contractors out there, who can deliver that level of service and that level of consistency and coordination across the whole journey for delivering decarbonisation. And then we have the final work stream there, which is sort of building safety, which I say is very much linked to damp and mould works, and about understanding actually how the property can be improved for the betterment of the residents. You can see there the number of suppliers each of those lots. There is obviously crossover between the lots in terms of the supplies that are available. So again, you can mix and match between those lots as a member to come up with a solution that best supports your design or what we need to deliver. Digitisation, digital analytics and reporting platforms. We have 3 key suppliers on that who can come in and sort of work with members to understand actually how you need to manage your data, which is a key area for all of us moving forward. And then smart sensors, we have a core supplier there who can actually install smart sensors directly in properties to get the data out that you need to use to make informed decisions moving forward. Next slide, please. Very quickly, just as a sort of final couple of slides from me, call-off contracts. This is just an overview of what we have available, what we put into the tender pack for the framework. Key ones for me is obviously the model consultancy appointment for lot 1. Intermediate with contractors design, we've sort of determined is probably the best form of contract for delivery of works and services. Even if the contractor is not actually being the principal designer under CDM, we still think the intermediate contract is probably the best form of contract available at the moment. We do have others, and more importantly, we can adopt members' own forms of contract wider than that list if necessary. In terms of delivering the contracts, it is overseen by CHIC. We manage that process through working collaboratively with the member and the supply chain that are involved in it to ensure that everybody understands their responsibilities through the different forms of contract. We can tailor the clauses to suit what the member needs and the contractor needs. And again, this is sort of recognising that each project is different in terms of how it needs to be delivered. We do try to turn our contracts around within 10 days. Obviously, bear with us on that. Complexity in contracts can sometimes extend longer than that, but it can be as quick as a sort of 10-day turnaround if a direct award is required under this framework. And we can execute them fairly quickly through DocuSign. Next slide, please. Final but one from me, you'll be glad to hear. This is just a quick overview of the team that we have available in CHIC. Our member services are the key drivers who were on which will be displayed a little bit later in Sarah's slides. We also have a strategic services team, which is a back office technical and commercial support. You can actually work with members to understand your specifications, ensure your specifications cover all of the works and services that you need to deliver, but also help you build up the pricing models to make sure that actually you're capturing everything if you're going through a further competition. We have our procurement team who run the competition through our e-sourcing platform. And then outside of that, we also support with a business intelligence team who can actually manage some of the data input for you and give you greater guidance on what the data is telling you in terms of your delivery models. And social value. Social value is a big area for CHIC. We have a sister charity, CHIP, who we support. And Emma is our social value manager who manages the output from social value commitments from our supply chain. Our contractual commitments from the supply chain framework is 1% of turnover for social value, and then we look at individual contracts to negotiate from there if members need or require anything further. And then the final slide from me, please. In terms of supporting the sector, we have developed our CHIC order management system, our COM system, which is a materials ordering system for the sector, which allows materials to be ordered from key manufacturers and programs to be managed at a much more granular level in terms of delivery. That's just a quick overview of some of the benefits of our COM system. But the one for me that really stands out, comms as an order management system, think of it as an Amazon for planned and category 1 materials in the sector, is that if you are delivering a program with multiple manufacturers or multiple suppliers, I'm going to pick up kitchens, for example, where you've got a kitchen coming from one manufacturer, the electrical components coming from an electrical wholesaler, and the plumbing components coming from a plumbing wholesaler. What we can do is combine all of that. So from a contractor's perspective or your internal in-house contractor's perspective, it's one order. So they can order against one property and the system will divide that order up to the various different suppliers. and all the materials will be delivered to site at the same time to allow your teams to actually get on and do those works. So it's a very good system. If you haven't had an opportunity, please come and have a look at it. And I'm sure we'll have some questions on that later. That's it for me. Michael, over to you, please.
Cheers, Luke. As you can see, we've got a very comprehensive suite of routes to market for all of our members, as covered off by Luke. What I failed to mention at the beginning, if you just want to direct your attention, there's a Q&A function at the bottom. So if you've got any burning questions you'd like our panelists to answer at the end, then pop it in there. If we run out of time for them to answer those questions, we'll fire them over to them and get them answered via email for you. So I will hand over now to Rebecca. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to be talking about how Equans approach our SHDF partnership bids with our clients, delivery of one of the biggest single SHDF programmes, and looking forwards to SHDF Wave 3. Next slide, please. So who are Equans? If you aren't already aware of us, we're a tier 1 construction company. We've been around in various forms for over 20 years. We were previously Keep Moat Regeneration, Engie, and we've most recently been bought by French giant Bouygues. So we offer a wide range of services, ranging from facilities management. We look after all of the court buildings in the UK, a number of universities, including Birmingham Uni. And as part of this, we offer a smart digital building management service as well. Vivo are part of the Equans group, so we look after 68,000 defence infrastructure buildings. But our core activity is sustainable regeneration and delivery towards net zero, which sits within our Places and Communities division. We've been working with local authority and public sector clients for over 20 years, delivering energy efficiency and retrofit measures, alongside more traditional capital works programmes, repairs and maintenance, and void management. We operate under 3 different regions. So our northern team cover Manchester, Liverpool, right up to sort of Sunderland. We have our central division, which is the area in which I work. So this is East and West Midlands, Yorkshire and the Humber. And we have our southern team, which operate predominantly around London. So retrofit decarbonisation is a key area of focus for us, and we're working with our clients as to how we can support their goals and ambitions for their housing stock and beyond, and how we align this with more traditional capital works programmes we might deliver for them. Next slide, please. So Equans have been sort of predominant in the world of SHDF for quite a number of years now. So we started off with Wave 1. We've worked on the demonstrator project. So we support our clients with sort of a partnership bid, looking at what their aims and objectives are. We offer a full turnkey service, meaning we're able to sort of formulate the content of a bid on behalf of our clients from the outset and sort of project manage the whole activity throughout. So we believe this approach is conducive with submitting a successful bid because it allows for a project to be fully mapped out and assessed pre-bid. And I know a lot of our clients that we've worked with haven't necessarily had the resource in-house to support this, so we're able to do this on their behalf. Across our 3 regions, we've secured over £350 million worth of government funding, and we've got a huge amount of experience across numerous different property and construction types. So this ranges from traditional Victorian terrace properties, receiving solid wall insulation, to high-rise tower block refurbishment, and renewables, including air source heat pump and solar PV. And we're flexible to our clients' needs. So as I mentioned, we can offer a full turnkey approach, or if it's preferable, we can just go down the sort of traditional design and build route. Next slide, please. So this is our full turnkey approach. So we would work with our clients to understand their aims and objectives, both in respect of retrofit and wider asset management. We're able to link retrofit projects to other priorities, such as damp and mould. So we would initially perform an assessment of client stock to understand the baseline position and assist in identifying any properties which would form a priority. So we provide full PAS 2035 process in-house. So we have directly employed retrofit assessors and coordinators, and this means that we can take a pragmatic approach in terms of measures that are recommended whilst working with our clients to offer advice on items such as ventilation strategy. It also means that our projects are not competing for capacity when using external organisations, and we have a framework of trusted retrofit designers that we work with regularly. So all of the energy efficiency measures installed are done so under our own PAS 2030 accreditation. This means that we have flexibility around the supply chain that we use, so they can focus on installing really high quality measures without getting bogged down with the paperwork. And we undertake the Trustmark lodgements once work is completed to ensure that measures are installed compliantly and have the appropriate documentation in place. So in order to do this, we employ a team of compliance officers who work on site with our ops teams and subcontractors, collating the paperwork and making sure that measures are installed in line with design. Our compliance officers are subject to a development pathway, so we put them through the Retrofit Academy Assessor and Coordinator course, but we believe that the experience that they gain on site is invaluable. And we go to great lengths to ensure our operational teams have a level of understanding around PAS. So we've even created a bespoke learning module to help bring them up to speed. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk about our partnership with Birmingham City Council a little bit. So we've been working with BCC since 2016. We're currently responsible for 45,000 of their housing stock. So we deliver capital works, void work, repairs and maintenance. But in 2002, we started talking to BCC about retrofit. Now they have a target to decarb all of their stock by 2030, so really tall order. So we started looking at how we could almost create a blueprint of a whole house retrofit that could be rolled out across the wider city and was synonymous with certain types of archetypes that they had a high proportion of within their stock. So Equans put together an options appraisal for them, so including basic energy efficiency measures to get properties to an EPCC, right up to almost like an energy sprung type model. So this achieved cabinet sign off, and BCC sort of chose the medium option in between, which was to take these properties up to an EPCB. Now this tied in nicely with the timeframes of SHDF Wave 2.1, and we decided to utilise the funding available towards the work, which then led to a bigger ambition for a much larger bid with BCC for 2,000 properties and included multiple projects. Equans worked collaboratively with Birmingham in putting the bid together, and we also worked with their other incumbent contractor, Fortum, so it really was a partnership approach to SHDF. And I'm pleased to say that we secured £24 million worth of funding. Next slide, please. So Equans are responsible for delivering 1,600 of the 2,000 properties in this programme. So this includes multiple energy efficiency measures, external wall insulation, solar PV. And what we really tried to do when identifying these projects is to tie them in with capital works programmes that we'd already got planned in with our operational teams. So for example, the work that we're doing on high-rise tower block, this is a full refurbishment, structural works, heating upgrades, internal decorations, but we utilise the SHDF funding to part fund the installation of the building. And the same with some of the solar PV installations that we're doing. We've tied them in with the roofing programme so that efficiencies can be made in terms of scaffolding costs. Next slide, please. So SHDF bid process. So as I mentioned, this is kind of the approach that we took with Birmingham to ensure that we could put together a really comprehensive bid. I think it's important to highlight that we feel one of the reasons we were successful is because of the level of work that went into this up front. So we spent time analysing Birmingham's stock, understanding which properties were worst performing, but also, as I mentioned, tied in with the capital works programme and combined a mixture of high value EWI measures with more sort of cost effective basic measures. We conducted sample retrofit assessments up front and produced an energy modelling, which was a key element, key element of the bid, and helped to demonstrate the impact that the works would have on the properties. So not just the EPC rating, but also residents' bills and carbon emissions. We included a real-life programme of works and cost plan, which demonstrated that the bid was realistic and tangible, and we worked collaboratively with Birmingham on producing the written content. Next slide, please. So once funding had been awarded, we were able to hit the ground running almost immediately, as we'd already had the programme and cost defined. I think this is one of the key reasons we were able to mobilise so quickly, and I would definitely recommend taking this approach potentially with a contractor to prevent delays where there is a high volume of properties to be delivered in a relatively short time frame. As we were aware of the properties and measures included in the project, we were able to engage with designers and supply chain up front to ensure that they were on board from the outset. And again, this also ensured that things moved swiftly. So to date, we've completed around 800 properties. We've been lodging those properties with Trustmark. The majority of the remainder of the work is already underway, so we're on target to complete within the 2.1 time frame. Next slide, please. I just wanted to call out some of the challenges that we've seen under 2.1. Of course, it's not all been smooth sailing. So I think Birmingham would openly admit their data wasn't great. We spent quite a lot of time visiting properties which we thought were D-rated, but turned out to be C. I think this just reinforces the fact that it's prudent to do some sample assessments up front. Another challenge that we've come across is mid-floor flats. So within a block, your mid-floor flats will often come out as a C. Birmingham have a lot of these. There is an allowance within the SHDF rules that 10% of properties can be a C. We found that this was more like 30% across blocks. So we've been working with Birmingham and DESNZ to sort of manage this closely and how we approach this across the programme. And I think under Wave 3, we're still at 10% as well. So this is maybe something that partners would want to consider if they have a high number of flats. And I think some of the more general challenges that we've seen across the industry around insufficient time for mobilisation, supply chain challenges. As I've mentioned, I think this is one of the sort of key benefits of having that engagement and project planning up front. Next slide, please. So I think Luke mentioned digitalisation and innovation in his presentation. So we have delivered this as part of our 2.1 project with Birmingham. So we've included some monitoring devices to 300 homes with a view that Birmingham may want to do this as a trial and look at how they monitor the rest of their stock, particularly around damp and mould. We have done some smart digital building scans with a view that this would be done a retrofit assessment, and then that limits the number of surveys and visits the resident would then have to have going forwards, because all of the information about the property is captured in one digital scan. So we really tried to kind of go beyond the basic level of delivery and look at some new things. Next slide, please. So all of our SHDF projects have a real emphasis on resident engagement and social value. So all of our schemes have a comms plan with a dedicated resident liaison officer. And we really feel that early engagement with residents has been key in securing the buy-in on the energy efficiency measures, particularly where we've done renewables. We've done a lot of work up front to educate residents on the benefits of air source heat pump and PV and ensure that they're comfortable with how to use them before they're installed. And we also focus heavily on social value, keen to utilise local labour and spend a lot of time with local schools and colleges offering interview workshops and career days. Next slide, please. So just looking forward to SHDF 3, we're currently awaiting the guidance with the bid window expected to open in the autumn. I would recommend any potential bidders to start planning out their projects now to ensure they have the sufficient time to plan a detailed programme, as I've mentioned. Equans have developed a commercial model to assist in modelling the most advantageous mix of properties to incorporate into a bid. And as I've mentioned, we're able to support with a full turnkey approach to bidding. So the Wave 3 approach obviously allows for two different routes to funding. So you've got your strategic partnership route, which is sort of 3,000 properties plus, or the kind of more standard challenge fund route. And again, we can support with either one of these options as a consortium or as a standalone bidder. Next slide, please. So just some of the nuances that we've called out from Wave 2. So Wave 3 provides a flat funding rate per property. So this is £7,500 for EPC D or below rated properties. So flat rate as opposed to the kind of variable one depending on EPCs. This can actually be blended across properties. So where you're looking at kind of lower cost measures, you can carry across some of that funding onto other properties. It does have to be at least 50% match funded by clients, as per the current wave. And there is again an additional £7,500 funding available for off-gas properties where a low carbon heating option is being proposed as a measure. One of the new items that's been brought in under Wave 3 is some additional funding, £20,000 per property for up to 10% of a programme to incentivise taking on-gas properties to renewables. So a bit of a pilot approach, which we would definitely encourage our partners to take advantage of. The space heating and demand target hasn't been referenced. Still awaiting for the official guidance. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. And the same again with a fabric first approach. There doesn't seem to be reference to that. So we will find out more in the coming weeks, hopefully. And the other sort of key item to note is that there is a 30% proportion of leaseholders which can be included, which I think is really helpful for those that are looking at more of a sort of area-based approach. Just one other thing I wanted to call out on this, and obviously this depends on location, but devolved funding does come into play here. So the West Midlands Combined Authority and Greater Manchester both have devolved funding, which means they already have their proportion of the Wave 3 bid secured. So local authorities in their area will need to go to the combined authorities directly to secure that funding. Next slide, please. So alignment with capital works programmes. So as retrofit delivery increases in scale, we're seeing a bit of a switch in mindset to move away from standalone retrofit projects with clients to more of a strategic approach, combining retrofit with planned capital works and building it into a longer term strategy. It also means utilising funding streams to support longer term plans rather than trying to identify specific properties that fit a criteria. So Equans are fully supportive of this approach and have recommended this initiative to our existing clients. As I mentioned, we've already kind of done that with what we're delivering with Birmingham on 2.1. So just taking this more holistic approach generates efficiencies in costs, leads to a high level of resident satisfaction and reduces the number of repeat visits and additional expenditure to both repairs and maintenance and multiple work streams. So we appreciate budgets are always tight and it's not always necessarily feasible to do all of the measures in one go, but simple considerations such as extending a roof line ready for external wall insulation when completing a re-roof, or ensuring it's fit for purpose ready for later installation of solar PV can all pay dividends in the long run. So as I mentioned, Equans can provide delivery across both capital works and retrofit projects and can assist in formulating this approach upfront with our partners. So just the final slide from me, key to a successful delivery. So all of this information feeds into the bid up front and is key in providing a sort of robust and tangible project when bids are being scored. We've had an extremely high success rate in taking this approach. And we also sort of have relationships across DESNZ. We're part of the National Home Decarbonisation Group. So we often get foresight of policy sort of changes and government objectives. So I think looking at that when putting together a successful bid is really important, and understanding the requirements of PAS. So as I mentioned, we sort of offer all of that under our full turnkey approach, so I can support any clients with that. So that's me done. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for that insight into a contractor's point of view of SHDF. So we'll move quickly over to Sarah from CHIC, who is going to go through a little bit about sort of lessons learned and how we're all sort of evolving into the wonderful world of SHDF. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning to everyone. I'm going to be discussing what we've learned so far from the SHDF funding and what we should be thinking about for the future. So next slide, please. So firstly, let's look at the challenges we faced. One key challenge has been the new suppliers and contractors entering the market. How do we commission these suppliers and contractors? Is it through large contractors like Equans, Tier 1, or is it through small, medium enterprises? This has created a slight shift in the sector, thinking on how SMEs can actually support the future journey of decarbonisation. Another major challenge has been that housing associations are procuring something which they don't fully understand or know the extent of the work that is needed. Usually when completing these types of works, additional works are then uncovered, increasing the original budget. This can then put further works at risk, potentially not being able to deliver the full project as initially thought. We know that on October the 28th, procurement rules will change, and one of the requirements will be for organisations to publish the performance of a contract through KPIs. This has to be considered as part of the process now, rather than waiting for new regulations to be enforced. Understanding what KPIs are needed for the project and how you will accurately monitor them. This potentially puts a shift from having the cheapest work to having more emphasis on the quality of the works, ensuring the performance throughout the project. Recently, I've been working with a member who's had two separate contractors for the design element and then the works. This member has encouraged both the suppliers to work collaboratively and work as a team rather than in a silo, creating a very successful contract. However, this sometimes is not the case, and separating out these two aspects can cause work to slow because of poor communication and no direction. A turnkey solution may be the best suited for some organisations, as this ensures one contractor through the whole of the process, from design right through to completing the works. However, there are downsides to the turnkey solution with one contractor essentially doing all the work. This is why within CHIC's Healthy Homes framework, we've ensured its open books of profit and overheads have to be disclosed in the pricing. Next slide, please. So what have we learned so far? One size does definitely not fit all. Each project is different and each building has different requirements. This then puts pressure on the type of cost for each property. Unless EPCs and surveys are accurate and up to date, it's hard to create a cost per property which is certain. Investments into reviewing the stock and understanding the actual condition of the homes before working begins allows for more accurate costings. This lack of data and accuracy has been highlighted at many housing associations, with many housing associations finding it hard to model from the data they have. When they're looking to upgrade their stock, money should be put aside to produce accurate data from the stock condition surveys and EPCs. Everyone is approaching this differently. Although everyone is working towards the same end goal of decarbonisation and improving housing stock, the way in which housing associations are carrying out this work is very different. This is also influencing tenants with large amounts of bad press around failed schemes or fake news, overall affecting the tenant engagement when trying to carry out a project. Through the last 2 ways, it's been highlighted that we don't have adequate workforce needed to provide the work. Alongside this, the PAS and Trustmark process can be extremely complex and confusing. This is a great concern for housing associations because of the timeline needed to complete this work. Next slide, please. So what can we take forward from our learning and improve on for the next wave? Undertake PAS 2035 surveys now. Update your data and understand what your stock really looks like and the requirement that it needs to be up to standard. Once you have this data, look to align this along already existing asset management strategies. For example, do you have a roofing programme on a high-rise that while the scaffolding is up, you could carry out external wall installation or renew the windows? Engage with tenants from the beginning. Bring them into the decision-making and give them a voice. Having them on side from the beginning will help minimise the noise from the fake news and press. If you're choosing to use different contractors for different aspects of work, bring them together and work collaboratively rather than in silo, helping to make the whole process seamless and easy. Overall, take the time to plan. Ensure you have accurate data on your stock before you make a decision on how much the budget should be or which contractor would be best suited for the work. This is all a work in progress and we're all trying to figure out what's the right and wrong way to do things. But a mistake is only bad if we repeat it time and time again. Ensure you're learning from the experiences of others and your own to create a smooth decarbonisation project. There are numerous case studies out there, including Equans, which I've gone through today, which can give you some insight into how to plan for this work. Next slide, please. As Luke has already mentioned, CHIC is a non-for-profit procurement consortium. As head of member services for the West region, I have a large amount of members interested in Healthy Homes framework. We can offer advice on which is the best way to procure your decarbonisation needs. This may be via our framework or our alternative DPSs. With our managed service, we're able to support you with the implementation of the contract, but then offer ongoing support throughout the whole of the contract until it's finished. Safe in the knowledge that if the worst does happen, such as the contractor not performing or budgets need to be increased, we can offer you the support. Reach out to any of our heads and member services to find out more about how CHIC can help you and offer advice on which is the best procurement route for your specific needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that insight into lessons learned by CHIC. And then finally on to our second Sarah McClelland, who's going to give you a bit of information about RISE. So Sarah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm just going to say first up, look at how much support and advice is available to help people with their retrofit programs. It's brilliant to see. So I'm here. So thank you very much for having me today. I'm here just to talk about the RISE support that is available. So if we move on to the next slide, we can start to see what it's about. So in addition to all the support you can get from CHIC, from Equins, you can of course access the completely free service through fully funded by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. So the aim of this service through RISE is that there's a realization that it can be very, very difficult and challenging to apply for funding and then to successfully deliver on that funding as well. And RISE was created to support local authorities, to support social housing providers, and of course the supply chain as well, to help them plan together. And that's what I'm loving seeing coming through. So talking, Rebecca mentioning sorting out data, Sarah talking about the next steps and the lessons learned. That's so important that we get this together and we get this right. Next slide, please. So, and skip again. So yeah, so the RISE support service. So it's a large team available to provide this support, and our support is twofold. So firstly, we'll talk through the technical support available. So the first thing we have is a self-assessment. This is simply so that you can understand where you are today and start to do a little bit of gap analysis. What additional support will you need? Do you need to focus on maybe your procurement? Do you need to focus on your resident engagement? That's what it's all about. The self-assessment, I've got to stress, is not a test. You can put down the answers going, I think this is the right answer, and that's absolutely fine. The self-assessment then leads you on to the diagnostic call, and that's where you go into a lot more detail just to really understand what position your organisation is in. And I should say, I will drop into the chat once I've finished speaking the link to the self-assessment as well, so you've got that directly. So the diagnostic call then leads into your support plan. The support plan is literally going, right, okay, we've got this consultancy advice that we can offer you, fully funded by DESNZ. What support do you need? How many days do you need? And what can we do to help deliver that? Then that goes into your one-to-one support, which is literally doing that in-depth advice. So it might be looking at your archetypes and actually understanding who else is doing the same archetypes across the nation and can we link them in. And then that goes into that tailored consortium support as well. So if you're working in a region, we will be able to link you up with somebody else who's also working on similar projects in that region. Really important, that consortium forming, because you're working together and you can really get some good value and also lessons learned shared across the group. The final piece of the technical support is the critical friend review. So those of you who've gone through the RISE support will know what this is, but it's literally looking at your application before you submit it to sort of go through, try and pull it apart and just see if there's anything you can do to enhance your application. And that really is to help you get ready to deliver. It's not about just getting the funding. It's actually saying, how can you actually deliver it? Have you got everything you need in place? And that's looking at things like your project team. What's your timeline looking like? Is it reasonable? Is it practical? And that's where that critical friend review, right at the last stages of funding, is really, really crucial. And if we move on to the next slide, we can find out more. So in the meantime, we have a huge amount of learning offer available. And I'll go through a little bit more of these in detail. So masterclasses, it was realised that we always have across the sector, there's always a change. People move to a new organisation, or they might be new to retrofit, they might be new to procurement, and those masterclasses are there. They're really specific on specific topics to really build up your team and let them understand what sort of let them understand what they need to know. A masterclass is about an hour long. It's about 30 minutes of presentation and plenty of time for questions and answers. We also deliver courses, so some of them might be online and some of them are in person. And these really are to really focus on developing your retrofit knowledge, and I'll talk more about them in a minute. And peer-to-peer sessions, I think these are invaluable. So these are bringing in, it might be a social landlord who's gone through Wave 2.2 or 2.1 and really understand what the challenges roundtables at the moment talking about consortium forming, and they really are to bring together people who've got common challenges and try to work through and find out what those barriers are and how they can be overcome. Drop-in clinics then are used simply just to sort of go, actually, you know what, I've attended this masterclass, I've attended this course. What I need to know now is, and I've got some more questions, I need to get those answers now. And that really is just to provide a really good space just for discussion and answer those questions. And if we move on to the next slide, please. So then we also have some toolkits on our Knowledge Hub. So those toolkits vary. They talk about procurement and best practice. They might talk about resident engagement and the different segmentations for residents as well. We also have podcasts. So these are released about once a week. And that's where we get expert speakers coming in and just talking to us about their topics of interest. We've had one recently about heritage buildings. Really good to have a quick listen. And of course, newsletters. Who doesn't love a good newsletter? I promise we won't spam you. So they're just about once a week, and that just gives you the latest news. So it could be the government announcing new funding. It could be then saying that we've got a particular event coming up and inviting you to that event. So please do sign up to the newsletter. It's well worth that click on the email. Next slide, please. So in addition, just talking more about detail on our learning and development, some of those topics that we cover. So this might be in the masterclasses or the podcasts, but it really is to support every step of your journey in terms of retrofit. So data collection, we talk endlessly about data collection. The more you can do to prepare your data, get it ready, get it analysed now, the better it's going to be for your long-term retrofit journey. We also talk about business case development. It's great to pull together a scheme, but actually, what support do you need within the business with senior management in particular to help develop that business case? And of course, everyone's favourite, PAS 2035. We need to apply with it. We need to comply with it. So how can we do that? And then once we're at the application stage, we will be taking people through storyboarding. So how can you pull together the best bid possible? And also then we'll be running application essentials courses, which are simply literally going, this is the application. These are the things, literally a checklist. This is everything you need to box off. And this is how you can start to deliver the best possible application. And if we move on to the next slide, I'd skip again, sorry. The first step to get involved is, of course, the self-assessment. So this is where you really can start to get that support. So please do, I'll drop the link in the chat, as I said. Please do sign up, get your self-assessment form in. The sooner you reach out to us and get support, the sooner we're able to provide that support to you. If we can skip the next two slides, I'm just very much aware of time at this moment. Here we are then. So this is what we've got at the moment. So we've got consortium forming round tables underway at the moment. These really are bringing together. So as you can see from the timelines at the bottom there, we're doing West Midlands and the South East. We're doing the Northwest. That's just this week. And really, it's just pulling people together to really understand from a strategic point of view, would it be worth coming into a consortium? What are the challenges that consortium might be able to overcome? Next slide, please. We also are delivering our Retrofit Essentials boot camps. Again, we're going out to the regions. These are all in-person boot camps, and it really is just helping you prepare now. So before there's any funding being released, helping you prepare and start to think about what do you need to do to make sure that your retrofit program, whether funded externally or funded internally, is a really solid retrofit program. So as you can see, there are a list of topics. Data. Oh, have I mentioned that before? Really important we get that right. But taking you right the way through to resident engagement as well, which is obviously from the previous conversations there. Resident engagement is crucial and it can be a real weakness in some projects. So again, you've got that opportunity. We're going to Nottingham, we're going to Middlesbrough, and other places are also available. And moving on again. So masterclasses as well. What we try and do with our masterclasses is get a subject matter expert in to really learn from them and learn from their what they have done in the past. So as you can see there, we've got heritage retrofit, social value and retrofit, and then of course integrating monitoring and evaluation. That was a key point from Wave 2.2 and 2.1 was how we were doing the monitoring and evaluation. So these sessions are then helping you start to think about when you get to the end, or rather before you get to the end, what do you need to do to make sure that you're evaluating the project? Next slide, please. There are lots of ways of contacting us, and as I said, I will drop it into the chat as well, so you've got access to our contact details and access to our website. And next slide. We are done. Sorry, just suddenly realised the time there, Michael, and I thought I'll just go fast.
Like a well-oiled machine, Sarah, well-oiled machine. Well, fantastic insight from our speakers to show what sort of level of support is out there, right from the inception of the project right through to completion of the project. We've got a couple of minutes actually, so I've got a few questions that have come through. I'll try not to aim them all at one person. So for Rebecca, is the ability to smooth fund across properties only allowed in phase 3, or has this been done in wave 2?
So it is only allowed in wave 3. It has been called out in the guidance. Wave 2, you have to be quite specific about the cost of measures per property and how much funding you're claiming against that. I think there's a recognition in wave 3 that to get a better sort of approach and generate as many retrofits as possible, that a blending is required. So yeah, wave 3.
Fantastic. I'm just quickly following on for that. Another question here: how much would a bid for wave 3 on an average cost per property be?
So I think in terms of the actual cost to deliver, obviously that depends on the measures being installed. Minimum number of properties for a standalone bid is 100, or organisations can go in as part of a consortium. So obviously it depends on kind of what the objectives are. Just I suppose in terms of Equans offering for putting together a bid, we offer that free of charge on the basis that we would secure delivery of the work.
Fantastic. And one for Sarah McClelland. I've been through the RISE process before. Do I have to do a self-assessment if I want to go through it again?
That's a really good question, Michael. Yes, please. And that's just reminded me I need to drop that link into the chat as well. So yes, some people will have used the RISE service in the past. Absolutely fantastic. Great to have you back on board. But yes, we do have to go through the self-assessment again.
Fantastic. And then one that was asked, I think Luke covered it off earlier, but there was is there a specific reason why Chick prefers the JTC intermediate with contractors design?
I'll pick that up again. Yeah, I did answer on the chat. The short answer is no. It's probably one that we know the best. And over the last few years, we've kind of identified that the intermediate with contractors design works best across the different types of works that have been delivered through the decarbonisation journey, particularly through a turnkey solution where the contractors have taken on all of the upfront consultancy work. But as an organisation, we can support any form of contract that is needed out in the sector.
Fantastic. We've got time for one more for Rebecca again. So how do Equans manage their supply chain and subcontractors, specifically around project creep and how you'd manage on-site delivery to minimise cost variations?
Mm-hmm. So our operational teams sort of manage our subcontractors quite closely on site. We sort of make sure that we have a trusted portfolio of supply chain that we can use. We perform all of the sort of relevant due diligence checks that you would expect. Just in terms of our approach to PAS, as I mentioned, we deliver under our own PAS accreditation, which allows our subcontractors to focus on the quality of the work, and our compliance officers will work with them quite closely to make sure that they understand the requirements for delivery and that they are delivering it compliantly in line with the design.
Fantastic. That is bang on time. So 12 o'clock, guys. Thanks very much for our panelists. A very, very interesting insight into the world of SHDF and all the support that is there. Just to let you know, this video will be on the Chick YouTube channel, and slides can be made available if you just get in contact with us. If you ping an email over to inquiries@chick.co.uk, then we can share the slide deck. So thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.